Commander Veltar looked at the data screen with his 4 eyes. The numbers made no sense. His long, thin fingers moved across the control panel as he checked the readings again. The same impossible results appeared. "This cannot be right," he said to his aide. His voice was high and musical, like most Valdari. "Run the scan again." The aide, a younger Valdari with bright purple skin, pressed several buttons.
"Sir, the results are the same."
The third planet from that star shows signs of life. Intelligent life. Veltar's skin changed from blue to a worried gray color. In all his years as a survey commander, he had never seen anything like this. The planet they were looking at was what the Valdari called a death world, a place so dangerous that nothing smart could live there. The water on this world was not pure. It had salt in it that would eat through their ships. The air had too much oxygen. It would burn their lungs. The gravity was twice as strong as their home planet. It would crush their bones. Worst of all, the planet was covered with life forms that seemed designed only to kill other life forms. "Show me the surface scans," Veltar ordered. The screen filled with images that made his aide step back in fear. Massive creatures with sharp teeth swam in the deadly oceans. 4-legged beasts with claws ran across the land. Flying monsters with hooked beaks filled the skies. Even the plants had thorns and poison. "How can anything intelligent live in that nightmare?" the aide whispered. Veltar was thinking the same thing, but the energy readings were clear. There were cities on this world. There were machines. There were even signals being sent into space. Somehow, something smart had learned to survive on this world of death. Far below on the planet's surface, Captain Deho stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Corps. He was a tall man with short black hair and serious eyes. His uniform was neat and clean, but his hands showed the scars of someone who had fought many battles. "Sir, we're getting strange readings from the outer system," said Lieutenant Su Jin. She was young but smart, with quick fingers that danced over her computer keys. "The deep space radar is picking up objects that shouldn't be there." Deho walked over to her station. "Show me." Su Jin pointed to several dots on her screen. "They appeared 3 hours ago. They're too big to be asteroids and moving too fast to be natural objects. Ships," Deho said quietly. He had been waiting for this day his whole life. Every human military officer had been trained for it. First contact with aliens. How many? "At least 50, sir. Maybe more. They're staying at the edge of the system like they're watching us." Deho pressed a button on his desk. "This is Captain Deho to High Command. Code red. We have visitors." Within minutes, alarms were ringing at military bases around the world. In hidden bunkers under mountains, old men and women who had planned for this day for decades began making phone calls. In space stations orbiting Earth, weapons that had never been tested in real battle were powered up for the first time. Back in space, Commander Veltar was reading reports from his scout ships. Each report made him more confused and worried. "Sir," said the aide, "the scouts have found something very strange. The creatures on this death world have built machines that fly between their moon and their planet. They have satellites around their world. They even have weapons in space." Veltar's skin turned completely gray. "That's impossible. Nothing that lives on a death world could be smart enough for space travel. Death worlds make creatures strong and mean, but not smart. The evidence is clear, sir. These creatures have technology. Not as advanced as ours, but they know how to build ships and computers and weapons." "What do they look like?" Veltar asked. The aide brought up an image on the screen. Veltar stared at it for a long time. The creatures were small compared to Valdari. They had only 2 eyes and no tail. Their skin was soft and had no scales. They looked weak and fragile. "These little things survived on that nightmare world?" Veltar asked. "How is that possible?" "We don't know, sir. But our computers have given them a threat rating." "What rating?" The aide's skin turned pale purple with fear. "Class 12 extreme hazard, sir." Veltar almost fell out of his chair. A Class 12 rating was only given to the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, planet-killing monsters, species that ate other species for fun. How could these small, weak-looking creatures get such a high rating? "There must be an error," he said. "No error, sir. The computer analyzed their world and their behavior. Any species that can survive on a Class 12 death world must be considered extremely dangerous." Veltar thought about this. The Valdari had been the strongest species in the galaxy for 1,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. They had never met anything they couldn't defeat. These humans couldn't be that dangerous. Could they? On Earth, Daeho was in a meeting with the other defense commanders. General Hyunwoo, an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, was speaking. "We always knew this day would come," the general said. "We've been preparing for 50 years. Our ancestors sent radio signals into space. They told the universe we were here. Now someone has come to visit. Are they friendly?" asked Admiral Eunmi, the commander of Earth's space forces. "We don't know," Hyunwoo replied. "But we're not taking any chances. They're staying at the edge of our system. That tells us they're being careful too. Either they're afraid of us or they're planning something." Sujin was monitoring the alien ships from her station. "Sir, they're scanning our planet." "Deep scans. They're looking at our cities, our military bases, everything." "Let them look," Daeho said with a cold smile. "They'll see what they expect to see. Cities full of people, soldiers with guns, ships with missiles. They won't see the things we keep hidden." "The bunkers?" Sujin asked. "The bunkers. The hidden bases. The weapons we built in secret. The plans we made for this exact situation." Daeho looked out the window at the blue sky. Somewhere up there, aliens were deciding if humanity should live or die. They think they're hunting sheep. They have no idea they're looking at wolves. Commander Veltar was making his decision. The high command of the Valdari Empire had sent him to explore new worlds. When he found worlds with intelligent life, he had two choices: try to make friends or remove the threat. These humans lived on a death world. That made them unpredictable and dangerous. They had space technology, which meant they could spread to other worlds. They might become a problem for the Valdari Empire. The decision was easy. The humans had to go. "Prepare the fleet for sterilization protocol," Veltar ordered. "We'll orbit their world and eliminate all life. Then we can take the planet's resources without worrying about the creatures that live there." "Yes, sir," the aide said. "How long do you estimate it will take?" Veltar looked at the scans of human cities. They looked so small and fragile compared to Valdari cities. 6 hours. Maybe less. These death world creatures might be tough, but they're still primitive. They won't last long against our weapons. He had no idea how wrong he was. The Valdari war fleet moved toward Earth like a storm of metal and death. 50 ships, each one bigger than the largest human building, approached the blue planet. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the death world grow larger on his screens. "Begin orbital bombardment," he ordered. "Target their cities first, then their military bases. Leave nothing alive." Bright beams of energy shot down from the alien ships. They hit the Earth's atmosphere and turned into spears of pure destruction. The first target was New York City. The beam should have turned the entire city into ash and melted rock. Instead, something impossible happened. A blue shield appeared over the city. The energy beam hit the shield and bounced away harmlessly. All around the planet, more shields appeared over other cities. "What is that?" Veltar demanded. His skin was turning from blue to angry red. "Unknown technology, sir," his weapons officer replied. "Their shields are deflecting our weapons. That's impossible. These are primitive death world creatures. How can they have shield technology?" Deep under the Rocky Mountains, Colonel Minho watched his screens with satisfaction. The mountain base was hidden so well that the aliens didn't even know it existed. Around him, human technicians worked at computers controlling the planetary defense grid. "Shields are holding," reported one technician. "The alien weapons are powerful, but we expected that." Minho nodded. Humanity had been preparing for this fight for 50 years. They had studied every piece of alien technology that had ever crashed on Earth. They had built weapons and defenses that the aliens wouldn't expect. "Begin Phase 2, Minho ordered, all around Earth's solar system. Things that looked like asteroids began to move. They weren't asteroids at all. They were human ships disguised and hidden for years. Inside each ship, human crews prepared for battle. Commander Ji-Wan was aboard one of these hidden ships. She was small and thin, but her eyes were hard as steel. She had been training for this fight since she was a child. "All ships, this is Phoenix Leader," she said into her radio. "The aliens think they're hunting sitting ducks. Time to show them they're wrong. Attack formation." The disguised ships dropped their fake asteroid shells. Underneath were sleek, deadly human warships. They had been built in secret, using technology that humans had developed by studying their own violent world. The ships moved fast, faster than the aliens expected. They used the gravity of planets and moons to speed up, a trick that only species from high-gravity worlds knew how to do well. Veltar watched in shock as dozens of human ships appeared from nowhere. They moved in patterns he had never seen before, like hunting animals working together to bring down a larger prey. "Where did they come from?" he shouted. "Our scans showed no fleet." "They were hidden, sir," his sensor officer reported. "Disguised as space rocks. We never detected them." "Impossible. No civilized species would hide their ships like that." The human ships opened fire. Their weapons were different from anything the Valdari had seen before. Instead of energy beams, they used solid metal projectiles fired at incredible speed. The metal slugs punched through Valdari shields like they weren't even there. "Our shields aren't stopping their weapons," the weapons officer cried. "How is that possible?" "Because they're not using energy weapons," Veltar realized. "They're using kinetic weapons. Mass drivers. Only a species from a high-gravity world would think to use such primitive but effective weapons." The battle was not going as planned. Valdari ships were taking damage. Some were even being destroyed. This had never happened before in the 1,000-year history of the Valdari Empire. On the human ship Phoenix, Sergeant Taemin was preparing for the most dangerous mission of his life. He and Corporal So Young were going to board an alien ship, not with advanced teleporter technology or fancy boarding pods. They were going to use EVA suits and magnetic clamps like ancient space workers. "This is crazy," So Young said as she checked her suit systems. She was young but tough, with scars on her hands from training accidents. "We're going to crawl across space and hope they don't see us." "That's exactly why it will work," Taemin replied. He was older, with gray in his hair and the calm confidence of a veteran soldier. "The aliens are looking for advanced technology. They won't expect us to do something this simple and dangerous." The two humans left their ship through an airlock. In the vacuum of space, they used small thruster packs to move toward a Valdari command ship. They moved slowly and carefully, staying in the ship's blind spots. The Valdari sensors were designed to detect energy signatures and large metal objects. They weren't programmed to look for two small humans in EVA suits. Taemin and So Young reached the alien ship without being detected. Using magnetic clamps and cutting tools, they made a hole in the alien ship's hull. The ship's atmosphere rushed out, but the Valdari had automatic systems that sealed the breach. The two humans slipped inside before the hole was completely sealed. Inside the Valdari ship, everything was wrong. The gravity was too light. The air was too thin. The corridors were too tall and narrow for humans. But Taemin and So Young had trained for this. They moved through the ship like ghosts, avoiding the alien crew. "The command center should be this way," So Young whispered into her radio. They found it 10 minutes later. The command center was full of Valdari officers, their skin flashing colors as they shouted orders in their musical language. None of them saw the two humans enter through a maintenance hatch. Taemin pulled out a device that looked like a simple metal box. It was actually a very advanced computer virus, designed to shut down Valdari systems. He plugged it into the alien computer network. The effect was immediate. Lights began flashing. Alarms started ringing. The Valdari officer's skin turned pale with fear as their ship's systems began shutting down one by one. "What is happening?" the ship's captain demanded. "Unknown system intrusion," an officer replied. "Something is in our computer network. It's taking control of our ship." By the time the Valdari found the two humans, it was too late. Their command ship was dead in space. Weapons offline. Engines offline. Life support failing. Taemin and So Young fought their way back to their entry point, using human-made weapons that fired explosive shells instead of energy beams. The aliens had never faced weapons like these. Their armor was designed to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles. The two humans escaped back to their own ship, leaving behind a crippled alien command vessel and a very confused enemy. "Report," Feltar demanded as his own ship shook from human weapons fire. "The command ship Brightwing is completely disabled," his communications officer reported. "The humans somehow got aboard and planted a virus in their computer systems." "How did they get aboard?" "We have sensors. We have force fields." "They used EVA suits and crawled across space, sir. Our sensors didn't detect them because they were too small and used no energy signatures." Veltar's skin turned completely white with shock. "They crawled through vacuum? In simple spacesuits? That's suicidal. Only a Deathworld species would even attempt something so dangerous." The battle was turning against the Valdari. Their advanced technology was useless against enemies who fought like wild animals. The humans used tactics that no civilized species would consider. They rammed ships into enemy vessels. They used nuclear weapons at close range, not caring that the radiation would damage their own ships. They fought like creatures who had learned to survive by being more vicious than everything else on their violent world. "Sir," the weapons officer said quietly, "I recommend we retreat. We're losing too many ships." Veltar stared at the tactical display. Half his fleet was damaged or destroyed. The humans were still fighting with the same intensity as when the battle started, maybe even harder. "Retreat?" he whispered. "The Valdari Empire has never retreated. Not in 1,000 years, though. Sir, these aren't normal enemies. They're Deathworld predators. They don't fight to win territory or resources. They fight to survive. And creatures that fight to survive will do anything to win." Veltar looked at the blue planet below. Such a small, primitive world. How had it produced such dangerous creatures? "All ships," he finally said, his voice heavy with defeat. "Begin withdrawal to the edge of the system. We need time to think about this." As the alien ships pulled back, humans all over Earth cheered. They had won their first battle against the stars. But the experienced commanders like Minho and Ji-Wan knew this was just the beginning. "They'll be back," Ji-Wan said as she watched the alien fleet retreat. "And next time, they'll bring more ships." "Let them come," Minho replied. "We've shown them that Earth's children know how to fight. Now they'll learn what it really means to go to war with the beasts of the Deathworld." News of the defeat traveled through the Valdari Empire like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, beings with scales, feathers, and crystal skin heard the impossible story. A single Deathworld had fought off the mighty Valdari fleet. Many did not believe it. Admiral Kethran was one of the few who did believe. He stood in the great war room on the Valdari homeworld, his silver skin gleaming under the bright lights. Around him, the High Council argued about what to do. "It was a fluke," said Councillor Zethman, her green skin flashing with anger. "One lucky battle means nothing. We should send a proper war fleet and end this embarrassment." "The reports are clear," Kethran said calmly. "These humans use tactics we have never encountered. They fight like pack hunters from their death world. They are dangerous, dangerous," laughed another counselor. "They are primitives. They don't even have faster-than-light travel. How can they threaten the Empire?" Kethran looked at the battle recordings. Human ships moving in coordinated attacks. Human soldiers boarding Valdari vessels through vacuum. Human weapons designed to punch through energy shields. It was not luck. It was evolution. A species that had learned to hunt the most dangerous prey in the galaxy, each other. "Give me 200 ships," Kethran said. "I will show these Deathworld beasts what real military power looks like." On Earth, General Hyun Woo and Admiral Yoon Mi met in the deepest bunker on the planet. The room was filled with maps, computers, and the faces of worried military officers from around the world. "They're coming back," Hyun Woo said. "Our long-range scanners detect a massive fleet moving toward our system. At least 200 ships. 10 times bigger than the first attack," Yoon Mi noted. "We hurt their pride. Now they want to make sure we don't embarrass them again." "Good," said a new voice from the doorway. Captain Junki entered the room, followed by Major Youngie. Both wore the black uniforms of Earth's Special Operations Command. "Let them bring everything they have. It will make our job easier." Junki was tall and lean, with the quiet confidence of a professional soldier. Youngie was shorter but moved like a predator, her eyes constantly scanning for threats. They were part of humanity's most elite fighting unit, the ones who would carry out the Deathworld Protocol. "Explain," Hyun-Woo ordered. "We can't win a straight fight against 200 ships," Youngie said. "So we don't fight straight. We fight like humans, like pack hunters, like the apex predators we are." She activated a holographic display showing the solar system. Red dots marked alien ships. Blue dots marked human positions. "The aliens think in terms of military targets," Junki explained.
Ships fight ships.
"Armies fight armies. Soldiers fight soldiers. That's how civilized warfare works." "We're not civilized," Young-A continued with a cold smile. "We're from a death world. We know that everything is connected. You don't just attack the predator. You attack its food source, its territory, its ability to reproduce." The hologram changed, showing supply lines stretching across space. Alien colonies, communication networks, civilian populations. "We're going to teach them what total war really means," Junki said. Admiral Kethran's fleet arrived at Earth's solar system like a metal storm. 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, carrying enough firepower to crack planets. This time there would be no surprises. "Begin deep scanning," Kethran ordered. "I want every human ship, every human base, every human hiding place identified before we attack." The Valdari sensors swept through the system, finding dozens of human ships hiding behind asteroids and moons. This time the aliens were ready for such tricks. "Deploy hunter-killer squadrons," Kethran commanded. "Destroy every human vessel before we begin planetary bombardment." The battle began exactly as the Admiral expected. Human ships emerged from hiding and engaged his forces. They used the same tactics as before: kinetic weapons, ramming attacks, nuclear explosives. But this time the Valdari were ready. They had studied the recordings from the first battle. They had adapted. For 6 hours, the two fleets hammered each other in the space around Earth. Human ships were destroyed by the dozens. The Valdari lost ships too, but they had many more to spare. "The humans are retreating," Kethran's tactical officer reported. "Their remaining ships are falling back toward their planet." "Excellent," Kethran said. "Begin orbital bombardment. This time, target their shield generators first." The Valdari fleet moved into position around Earth. Energy weapons began firing down at the planet's surface. One by one, the blue shields protecting human cities began to fail. But something was wrong. Kethran felt it in his bones. The humans were giving up too easily. Deathworld predators didn't surrender when they were losing. "They became more dangerous, sir," the communications officer said, his voice shaking. "We're receiving reports from across the Empire. Our colonies are under attack." "What?" Kethran's silver skin turned pale. "Under attack by whom?" "Humans, sir. They're hitting our supply convoys, our mining operations, our communication stations. They're everywhere." The holographic display in the command center changed to show the entire Valdari Empire. Red warning lights were flashing on dozens of worlds. Human ships had appeared from nowhere, and were striking at everything that kept the Empire running. Captain Junki's ship emerged from hyperspace near a Valdari mining colony. The colony was defended by only 2 patrol ships. The Valdari had sent their entire military to attack Earth. "All teams, remember the plan," Junki said into his radio. "We're not here to hold territory. We're here to break things." His ship, along with 20 others, swept down on the mining colony. They didn't target the civilian buildings or the workers. They targeted the equipment, the power generators, the communication arrays, the spaceport. In 30 minutes, they had crippled a colony that supplied raw materials to 50 Valdari worlds. Then they disappeared back into hyperspace before reinforcements could arrive. Across the galaxy, Major Young-Yi was leading a similar attack on a Valdari communication hub. Her teams used explosives to destroy the massive towers that carried messages between star systems. "Why are we attacking these targets?" asked one of her soldiers. "Because this is how pack hunters work," Young-A explained as she watched the towers collapse. "We don't try to kill the biggest predator first. We separate it from its pack. We cut its communication with the others. We destroy its ability to coordinate." The Valdari Empire had never faced this kind of warfare. They were used to battles between fleets and armies. They didn't know how to respond to enemies who struck at their infrastructure and then vanished. "How are the humans doing this?" demanded High Counselor Vextar on the Valdari homeworld. "How are they attacking our colonies when their entire fleet is trapped at their homeworld?" "They're not using their fleet," Admiral Kethran realized. "They're using small ships, hidden bases, sleeper agents. They've been preparing for this kind of war for decades." "That's impossible. We would have detected such preparations." "Would we?" Kethran asked. "We scanned their system for military targets. We looked for ships and bases and weapons. We didn't look for cargo vessels with hidden weapons bays. We didn't look for merchant ships that could transform into warships. We didn't look for civilian colonies that were actually military outposts." The reports kept coming in. Valdari supply ships destroyed. Communication networks disrupted. Mining colonies crippled. The humans weren't trying to conquer territory. They were trying to starve the Empire. "Sir," Kethran's tactical officer said quietly, "if these attacks continue, we won't be able to maintain our fleet at Earth. We need those supply lines." Kethran stared at the tactical display. The human fleet around Earth was almost gone. The planet's shields were failing. Victory was within his grasp. But what good was victory if the Empire collapsed while he was achieving it? "The humans planned this," he said with grudging admiration. "They knew they couldn't defeat our fleet, so they made it impossible for us to use our fleet." More reports came in. A Valdari research station had been destroyed by humans using biological weapons, viruses that only affected Valdari physiology. A military base had been attacked by human soldiers who used their own atmosphere as a weapon, filling Veldari buildings with oxygen-rich air that burned their lungs. Worst of all, other species in the Empire were beginning to rebel. The Korthek had declared independence. The Milani were demanding self-governance. They had seen that the mighty Veldari could be defeated, and they wanted their freedom. "Admiral," the communications officer said urgently, "High Command is ordering us to return immediately. The Empire is falling apart. They need our fleet to stop the rebellions." Kethrin looked at Earth hanging below his ships like a blue jewel. "So close to victory. So close to ending this embarrassment, sir?" the tactical officer asked. Kethrin closed his eyes. He was a military commander, but he was also a patriot. The empire that had lasted for 1,000 years was more important than his personal victory. "All ships," he said heavily, "begin withdrawal from the system. We return to defend the empire." On Earth, humans watched the alien fleet retreat for the second time. But they knew this wasn't victory. It was just the beginning. "They'll be back," General Hyunwoo said. "Yes," Admiral Yunmi agreed. "But now they know what they're really fighting. Not just humans. The idea of humans. The idea that Deathworld—" 3 years had passed since the first alien ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. The galaxy was no longer the same place it had been before humans showed the universe what Deathworld warfare looked like. On the Veldari homeworld, High Counselor Vextar stood before a map that showed their shrinking empire. Red zones marked worlds in rebellion. Yellow zones showed colonies that had stopped sending tribute. Green zones, once covering most of the galaxy, were now small patches scattered across the star map. "We're losing everything," Vextar said to the Emergency Council meeting. "Half our member species have declared independence. Our supply lines are constantly under attack. Our military is spread too thin to maintain control." Admiral Kethrin, his silver skin now marked with stress patterns, stood at attention. "The humans are not just fighting us anymore. They're teaching other species how to fight us. They're sharing their Deathworld tactics with our enemies." "How is that possible?" demanded another counselor. "The humans are trapped in their own system. Our blockade should prevent them from making contact with other worlds." "The blockade exists only in our minds," Kethrin replied grimly. "The humans don't travel like civilized species. They don't use established hyperspace routes or follow galactic traffic laws. They send small ships through asteroid fields, hide supplies in dead systems, and use solar radiation to mask their energy signatures." On Earth, Commander Dong-hyun prepared for another mission. He was part of the new generation of human warriors, soldiers who had grown up during the war years. At 25, he had never known peace. His reflexes were faster than older humans. His mind adapted to constant danger. His body trained from childhood to fight in zero-gravity and hostile environments. "The target is a Veldari weapons research facility," he told his team as they suited up in their ship's armory. "Intelligence says they're developing something called a planet cracker. We need to stop them before they finish it." Captain Ye-jin, his second-in-command, checked her weapons power cell. At 23, she was even younger than Dong-hyun, but she had survived more battles than soldiers twice her age. Her eyes had the cold focus of someone who had learned to kill before she learned to drive. "How many guards?" she asked. 200 Veldari soldiers plus automated defenses," Dong-hyun replied. "But that's not the problem. The problem is the facility is built inside an asteroid. One entrance, no atmosphere, and the interior is filled with radiation that would kill normal humans in minutes." Ye-jin smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Good thing we're not normal humans anymore." The war had changed humanity in ways that terrified the aliens. Children born during the conflict showed remarkable adaptations. They could hold their breath longer, had better night vision, and could tolerate radiation levels that would cripple other species. They thought in tactical terms from an early age and showed no fear of violence or death. The Veldari called them the War Generation, humans who were born to fight and knew no other way of life. Dong-hyun's team reached the weapon facility after a week of travel through dangerous space. Their ship looked like a damaged cargo hauler, complete with fake emergency broadcasts and false identification codes. The Veldari guards let them dock, thinking they were rescuing survivors from a pirate attack. 20 human Special Forces soldiers emerged from hidden compartments in the damaged ship. They wore armor designed for the harsh environment of space and carried weapons that used the asteroid's own gravity against the defenders. The battle was swift and brutal. The Valdari soldiers were well-trained and experienced, but they had spent their careers fighting other civilized species. They weren't prepared for enemies who used the asteroid's low gravity to bounce off walls and attack from impossible angles. They weren't ready for weapons that fired guided projectiles that could turn corners and seek targets. Most importantly, they weren't prepared for humans who fought with the pack-hunting instincts of Deathworld predators. Dong Hyun and Ye Jin led their teams through the facility's corridors, like wolves hunting deer. They moved in perfect coordination, communicating through hand signals and facial expressions. When one team encountered heavy resistance, the others would circle around and attack from behind. "The research lab is through here," Ye Jin reported over the radio as she planted an explosive charge on a heavily armored door. Inside the lab, they found the planet cracker research. It was a weapon designed to destabilize a world's core and cause the planet to tear itself apart. The kind of ultimate weapon that civilized species used as a last resort. They were going to use this on Earth, Dong-hyun realized as he read the research files. "Not anymore," Ye Jin said as she began setting charges throughout the lab. But they also found something else. Plans for other weapons. A virus designed to target human DNA. A radiation bomb that would make Earth uninhabitable for 1,000 years. Gas weapons that would turn Earth's atmosphere into poison. "They're not just trying to defeat us," Dong-hyun said. "They're trying to make sure we can never recover. They want to kill our entire species." This discovery changed everything. Up until now, humans had been fighting to defend their world. Now they realized this wasn't just a war for territory or resources. It was a war for survival. The aliens wanted to wipe humanity out of existence. Engineer Woo Jin received the intelligence report in his laboratory deep under the Australian mountains. He was a quiet man who had spent the last 3 years working on humanity's most secret project. Around him, teams of scientists and engineers worked on what they called the Exodus Protocol. "They want to extinction us," Woo Jin said to his assistant. "Dr. Haiwan, if they're willing to go that far, we need to be ready to do the same." Hee-won nodded. She was young but brilliant, with degrees in genetics and quantum physics. "The Exodus ships are almost ready. Each one contains everything needed to rebuild human civilization. DNA samples, cultural records, manufacturing equipment, and most importantly, all our tactical knowledge. The Exodus Protocol wasn't designed to save Earth. It was designed to ensure that if Earth died, humanity would survive and spread across the galaxy like a virus. Automated ships would launch toward every habitable world in known space. If they detected that Earth had been destroyed, they would begin rebuilding human civilization on their target worlds." "How many ships?" Woo Jin asked. 500, Haiwan replied. "Each one programmed with the locations of alien colonies and the knowledge of how to build Deathworld weapons. If Earth falls, 500 new human worlds will rise to take revenge. And if the aliens find the ships, they won't. We're hiding them inside comets, asteroids, even inside gas giant atmospheres. By the time they realize what we've done, it will be too late." Meanwhile, Admiral Kithran was preparing for what he knew would be the final battle. The Valdari High Command had made their decision. If they could not control the galaxy with humans in it, they would destroy the humans and rebuild their empire from the ashes. "The Planet Cracker fleet is ready," he reported to the High Council. 50 ships carrying the most powerful weapons we have ever built. This time we're not trying to conquer Earth, we're trying to destroy it. "What about the human forces throughout the galaxy?" asked Counselor Vextar. "Once their homeworld is gone, they'll have nowhere to retreat to," Kethrin explained. "Without Earth to supply them, they'll eventually be hunted down and eliminated." "And the other rebellious species?" "Without human support and training, they'll fall back under our control. The humans are the key to all our problems. Remove them and the Empire will be strong again." But even as he spoke, Kethrin had doubts. The humans had surprised them too many times. They had tactics and weapons that no civilized species would even imagine. What if they had one more surprise waiting? On Earth, Fleet Admiral Seok Jin and Field Marshal Na Young stood in the command center that controlled humanity's defenses. Around them, screens showed the approaching alien fleet. This one was different from the others. The ships were larger, more heavily armed, and they carried weapons designed to crack planets. "They're coming to finish us," Na Young said quietly. She was a small woman with graying hair, but she had commanded Earth's ground forces through 3 years of continuous war. "This is their extinction fleet. Then we show them what extinction really looks like, Seokjin replied. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with the bearing of someone who had commanded starships in desperate battles. Activate the Omega Protocol. Across Earth's solar system, things that had been waiting in the cold darkness of space began to wake up. Not just ships and weapons, but entire asteroid bases that had been built in secret over the past 3 years. Human civilization hadn't just been defending Earth. They had been preparing to spread across the galaxy through war. All units, this is Earth Command. Seokjin broadcast on all frequencies. The aliens want to kill our world. They want to eliminate our species. They think they can destroy the apex predators of the Deathworld. He paused, looking out at the stars where enemy ships approached. They're about to learn why you never corner a pack of wolves. The final battle for humanity began not with energy weapons or missile barrages, but with something the Valdari had never seen before. As their planet Cracker fleet approached Earth, the space around the blue world seemed to come alive. Admiral Kethrin watched his sensor displays in growing confusion. "What am I looking at?" he demanded. "Unknown contacts, sir," his sensor officer reported. "They're everywhere. In the asteroid belt, in the outer planets, even in the comet cloud. It's like the entire system is filled with hidden bases. For 3 years, while fighting a galactic war, humanity had also been turning their solar system into the largest fortress in the galaxy. Every asteroid had been hollowed out and filled with weapons. Every dead moon had become a military base. Even the gas giants had floating cities hidden in their atmospheres. "How many?" Kethron asked. "Thousands of installations, sir. Maybe tens of thousands. It's like they turned their entire star system into a single massive weapon." Fleet Admiral Seokjin stood in his command center buried deep under Earth's crust. Around him, displays showed the alien fleet approaching, 50 of the largest warships ever built, carrying weapons that could crack planets. But he wasn't afraid. He had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. "All stations, this is Earth Command," he broadcast. "Execute Omega Protocol. Show them what happens when you threaten the pack." The response was immediate and overwhelming. From 1,000 hidden positions, human weapons opened fire. Not the simple kinetic weapons they had used before, but new devices built from 3 years of studying captured alien technology. Gravity bombs that turned space itself into a weapon. Magnetic pulse weapons that ripped metal ships apart. Fusion mines that burned as hot as stars. And strangest of all, biological weapons designed specifically to target alien life forms. "Impossible," Kethron shouted as his ships came under attack from every direction. "How do they have this much firepower?" The answer came from Strike Commander Gi-hun, whose ship had been hidden inside what looked like a small moon. "Because we turned our entire world into a weapon factory. Every human, every resource, every piece of technology focused on one goal, making anyone who threatens Earth pay the ultimate price." Gi-hun's ship was unlike anything the Valdari had seen. It looked organic, like something that had grown rather than been built. Its hull could repair itself. Its weapons could adapt to enemy defenses. Most terrifying of all, it had no crew. Just Gi-hun and his AI partner, a computer intelligence based on human tactical thinking. Wing leader Su Min led a squadron of similar bioships against the Valdari fleet. Her ships moved like living creatures, coordinating their attacks with the pack-hunting instincts of Earth's predators. "Target their command ship," she ordered. "Cut off the head and the body dies." But the Valdari weren't giving up easily. Their planet cracker weapons began charging, preparing to fire at Earth itself. If they were going down, they would take humanity with them. "Sir," Kethrin's weapons officer reported, "planet crackers will be ready to fire in 60 seconds. "Do it," Kethrin ordered. "Even if we lose our fleet, we'll eliminate the human threat forever." That's when the humans revealed their final surprise. Admiral Changmin's voice came over all communication channels, not just human, but alien as well. His message was broadcast across the entire galaxy. "Attention, Valdari Empire and all species listening. This is Admiral Changmin of the Human Defense Forces. You have threatened to destroy our world. You have tried to eliminate our species. You have declared a war of extinction against the children of Earth. On the Valdari homeworld, billions of alien citizens watched the broadcast in shock. The human admiral looked calm and confident, not like someone whose world was about to be destroyed. "We want you to understand something," Changmin continued. "We are not just defending Earth today. We are defending the right of all species to exist free from your tyranny. For too long, the Valdari Empire has crushed worlds and enslaved peoples. Today that ends. Across the galaxy, the hidden Exodus ships began transmitting. But they weren't carrying refugees from a dying world. They were carrying liberation forces to free enslaved planets. Our ships are already at your colonies, Changmin announced. Not 50 ships, not 100. 500 ships, each one carrying human advisors, human weapons, and human tactical knowledge. Every species you have oppressed is about to learn how to fight like apex predators. The effect was immediate. Rebellion erupted on a dozen Valdari worlds as human-trained freedom fighters struck at government centers. The rebels used Deathworld tactics, biological weapons, psychological warfare, and most importantly, the willingness to do anything necessary to win. We're receiving reports from across the Empire, Kethran's communications officer said, his voice shaking. Simultaneous uprisings on every major world. The humans planned this. They've been preparing for months. But the planet crackers were almost ready to fire. In 30 seconds, Earth would be torn apart and humanity would be extinct. The Valdari could lose their empire, but at least their greatest enemy would be gone. Planet crackers charging. The weapons officer reported. 20 seconds to fire. That's when space itself began to twist. Humanity's ultimate weapon wasn't a bomb or a missile. It was something they had learned from studying their own violent world. Sometimes the best way to kill a predator is to make it kill itself. Around each Valdari ship, gravity began to behave strangely. The weapons humanity had built didn't just use gravity as a tool, they turned it into a living thing. The space around the alien fleet became a whirlpool of twisted physics pulling the ships toward each other. "What's happening?" Kethran demanded as his flagship began spinning out of control. "They're using gravitational weapons," his science officer replied, "but not to attack us directly. They're creating artificial gravity wells that are pulling our ships together. If we don't break free soon, our own planet crackers will destroy each other when they fire." It was a perfect trap. The Valdari could either fire their ultimate weapons and destroy themselves, or power down the weapons and let the humans escape. Kethran made his choice. Fire the planet crackers. The weapons fired at the exact moment that 50 Valdari ships collided with each other in a twisted knot of metal and energy. The planet crackers, designed to destroy worlds, instead destroyed the fleet that carried them. The explosion could be seen from Earth with the naked eye. 50 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy, gone in an instant. But the real victory wasn't the destruction of the fleet. It was what happened next. Across the galaxy, species that had been enslaved for 1,000 years looked up at their Valdari masters and realized they didn't have to be afraid anymore. The mighty Valdari Empire could be defeated. The humans had shown them how. On the Valdari homeworld, High Counselor Vextar stood in the ruins of his government building. Outside, former slaves marched through the streets carrying human-made weapons and shouting freedom songs in a dozen languages. "It's over," he said to his remaining counselors. "The Empire is finished." "The humans have won, but at what cost?" asked another counselor. "They've turned the entire galaxy into a war zone. They've taught every species to fight like savage beasts." "Maybe," Vextar replied, "but they've also taught them to be free." On Earth, Admiral Changmin received the Valdari surrender in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. But he made it clear that this wasn't humanity's victory alone. "We didn't fight this war to conquer," he said to the assembled alien diplomats. "We fought it to survive. And in fighting for our survival, we showed every species in the galaxy that tyrants can be defeated." He looked directly at the camera, knowing his words were being heard on 1,000 worlds. "The galaxy has learned what happens when you threaten the children of a death world. We don't just fight to win. We fight to make sure no one ever threatens the pack again." Years later, Earth had become something no one expected, a training ground. Young beings from across the galaxy came to humanity's homeworld to learn Deathworld tactics. They studied in Earth's harsh environments, learning to survive where everything tried to kill them. Children who had once been slaves learned to be warriors. Former prisoners became freedom fighters, and at the center of it all were human instructors, teaching them the most important lesson of the war. "Remember," said Instructor Dong Hyun to a class of young aliens, "you don't have to be the strongest or the smartest to win. You just have to be willing to do what your enemy won't do. You have to be the apex predator." The students, representing dozens of species, nodded and took careful notes. Tomorrow they would return to their own worlds and teach others what they had learned. The pack was growing and it was hungry. In the end, humanity had done more than survive. They had changed the galaxy forever. No longer would powerful empires be able to crush weaker species without consequence. Every tyrant now had to wonder, are there any humans helping my enemies? Are there any Deathworld graduates training my slaves to fight? The age of easy conquest was over. The age of the apex predator had begun, and somewhere in the depths of space, hidden Exodus ships continued their eternal patrol, carrying the message of Earth to any species that needed to hear it. You don't have to live in fear. You can learn to be dangerous too. The pack,